how can we have a magic pill that fixes emotions when we don't have anything to quantify this emotion? So I'm Dr. Eric Fong. I have a medical degree and a background in hospital medicine. My specialty is internal medicine. So psychosomatic disease processes are disease processes that are created within the mind itself and usually have overwhelming emotions associated with them to create a depressive state that affects the physical body itself. An example of a psychosomatic disease process is irritable bowel syndrome. So people can feel anxious, they can feel depressed, and they can have, gastrointestinal issues because of it. They can have intermittent diarrhea, constipation, and that's just one of many, many examples. So psychosomatic disease processes has a huge spectrum, from some that are less severe and very subtle to very debilitating disease processes. So there's some where, in a epidemiology standpoint, there's lots of data showing that there is stress that's associated with autoimmune disorders. There's people who have autoimmune disorders and who are stressed also have higher levels of cancer rates. So there are a lot of psychosomatic disease processes out there, and all assortment of arrays of different kinds. So how many psychosomatic disease processes are the actual cause of other disease processes? This is a question that in science we're constantly finding out. We're constantly relating new data and showing that X amount of people who have these disease processes are also struggling with this kinds of depressions, this kinds of anxieties. It's just very hard to quantify and very hard to find those correlations. And it's something that, as time goes on, we hope that there's more and more data that shows, and in general schemes, showing that, all these disease processes are related to somehow the mind, somehow related to what kind of emotional state that this person has in general. Now, hopefully we'll have some sort of science that shows, okay, there's X amount of percentage, but until the data actually gets put out and people start investigating more, then we'll have a better understanding of the exact percentage. The issue that a lot of people are facing when they do have these psychosomatic disease processes, like depression, and that's debilitating them, that's causing some sort of panic attack where it's hard for them to get to work, it's hard for them to function on a daily basis. It's also causing them diarrhea, constipation, all these issues internally within the physical body. So yeah, what we do when we present, have these kinds of patients is that, we run them through some sort of profile to say, okay, you qualified yourself for depression. Now that qualifies me to give you an antidepressant. What do these antidepressants do, or anti-anxiety medications do? Well, they mess with the biochemistry of the body, manipulating the neurotransmitters. So somehow the serotonin is at a higher levels. So the lows are not so low, the highs are not so high. But anybody who's been in a deep depression or have anxiety bouts, they'll know that this is not the real fix. This is not fixing the actual cause of the problem. There's still underlying and behind the scenes there. So what is the actual fix for these problems? Well, how can we have a magic pill that fixes emotions when we don't have anything to quantify this emotion? How we don't have instruments or tools to find what these emotions are to really change the chemistry of them. Why is that the case? Well, that leads into this is not within the dimension of the physical world, these emotions. And as we may have alluded to in different videos, this is of the psychic world, or the psychic dimension that we have right on top of us. So we have an emotional body, and then we have a mind or thought form body, the noetic body on top of this, that even has a higher vibration than the psychic. So how do we actually fix these psychosomatic disease processes? Well, anybody who's ever been through depression or has bouts of anxiety will tell you that it was their therapist. It was behavioral, cognitive, or psychotherapy that actually changed it. So basically giving the tools to look within to figure out where this emotion or where this thought was coming from that was debilitating them on a physical level. Once you tap into the subconscious and make it conscious and wrap your mind around these thoughts and feelings and put them to rest, this is when you finally have relief, finally come out of a depressive state, and you feel like you have control because you put them to rest, you know where they came from. So people who have psychosomatic disease syndromes are struggling because they don't know how to fix it. They don't know where it's actually coming from. They have no idea where it started, how it started, and all of it stems within the subconscious itself. So people not having the skills or the ability to look within and find where that started, to ask these questions, to say, hey, where did this start from? Where did I first have this feeling? When did I first have this stomach ache? Or when did I first have this type of debilitating, behavior where it's hard for me to go out and do some of the things that I used to do, or have this panic attack for the first time? So a lot of times people don't want to face, where it came from. So the best tool that we can ever have in the beginning of any journey on your spiritual awakening is to understand that you are not your mind, and that your mind is the one that's creating these thoughts and feelings, and thus creating the reality that you're engulfed in. And most people that you find on the streets say that, yeah, they'll agree that you are your mind, or they don't know what the differentiation between, am I my mind or am I not my mind? So once you sit and ponder and really look inward and observe that you are not your mind, and that what your mind is creating is these thoughts and feelings and this reality that you're engulfed in, then at least you have the power to control your mind itself. And that's always going to be the first step in the progression of fixing these psychosomatic disease processes. This is where we hope that with some of the skills that we provide with the Researchers of Truth, that we encourage people to look within the subconscious, to explore the world there, because it can help in so many different ways when we find not only these elementals, but we find truly that we are not these elementals and that we have control over them so that they don't have control over us.